think you should.
Welcome to this week's episode of Whoscussion. We are your hosts, the very sick ThatRandomGuy, and the essentially pleasing Harriet Skelly.
Yeah, they're always not sick, Harriet Skelly.
That is true. Now we've got joining us again this week, the Late Crow. The Late Crow, say hello to everybody in YouTube land.
Hello, everybody in YouTube land.
Alrighty. So this week we're going to be covering, for part A, we're going to be doing the pyramid at the end of the world, not the end of the earth, as someone might have said earlier before the stream. And then we'll be moving on to Kinder, the Fifth Doctor story. And then we'll be moving on to the light at the end in part B, or as I like to call it, the real 50th. And finishing it off with Full Life. So, the pyramid at the end of the world. Harriet Skelly, take us away.
All right, so brand new episode. It was a wild ride from beginning to end, honestly. Just immediately into it because we already know what's going on. Thanks to having a lead up in the previous episode, we get the Doctor and we get Bill and her beau finally hitting it off, and just as what was going on, just this perfect mirror of her night with her in the simulation. She's there, they're having a good time, and then all of a sudden, Unit shows up. Unit, the old UN security chief. I can't remember his title. He shows up and is like, "Hey, we need you, Bill." And she's just sort of like, "Really? It was the Pope, and now it's this. Come on." she's just getting really blocked by the Doctor's other companions, I guess. It's a good time. So yeah, she gets pulled into this. So does the Doctor, unrealizing that his TARDIS has been picked up and carried away. That was interesting.
But the doors aren't big enough. They are now.
It's great. So on the plane, he's apparently considered the president of the world again. I don't understand what the deal was with that. It seems
only Moffat does.
It's really weird. I'll get into that later. But so he's been told he's the president of the world again. They're flying over to where this pyramid is that has miraculously appeared in the middle of a completely made-up nation. So, where apparently the American, the Chinese, and the Russian armies are all in a three-way battle, not really a battle, just sort of
Mexican
a standoff. Yeah, a Mexican standoff without Mexican in there. Yeah. So yeah, that's a thing that's happening. They'll go down to try and find out what's going on, because apparently, because it's a war zone, this miraculous event is causing some hostilities. Not sure what that's all about either, but that's unnecessary as part of this. In the meantime, we're also getting these underlying events happening with this lady and this very hungover man who are working in a biolaboratory, which doesn't seem you kind of almost immediately understand what's happening if you're pretty onto it anyway. You'll kind of understand what's happening with that storyline.
It's very Third Doctor, in my opinion.
It is very Third Doctor, but it's really obvious from the get-go with the snapshots of like her glasses getting broken and stuff. You're just like, okay, they're trying to pull that like butterfly effect thing off. Yeah. Where they're trying to say, this is the event that causes the end of the world, is her glasses getting smashed in the store. It's like, okay. So yeah, it's that's playing along in the background. You kind of feel that, that's the underlying theme here, is that this is happening while the Doctor and Bill are doing their stuff. So that's the actual the actual event that's going to cause the end of the world. But yeah, the Doctor and Bill and Nardo have all been flown all the way over to this place and are basically trying to figure out what's going on. And they get inside the pyramid. Pyramid's got the monks in it. Not sure why they're being called monks. That seems like not a very apt name for them, honestly. I think they look more like mummies, especially considering they've landed in a pyramid. They probably should have been called the mummies.
Yeah.
That probably would have been.
But
They would have been.
That'd been weird, right?
It would have been a great reference though, because then 12 could have said that to them. And, he's the reference Doctor. He should have made that reference.
Yeah, especially since he made it before.
Exactly. So I don't know, and they look way more like mummified people, so it makes more sense that they would be called the mummies. But hey, I'm not the writer here. So yeah, they get inside the pyramid. The mummies explain everything in that evil kind of way, but trying to explain. They're trying to act like they're It's really interesting this idea that they've come to Earth to say, we know that your planet is doomed, and there's nothing really you guys can do to stop it, except for basically asking us for help, which is a really interesting take on the whole invading army sort of deal. Because what the Doctor always ends up having to do is when an invading army comes, he just defeats them in some way, but because the people that are there are not, or the army that's invading is not actually invading. They've just come and said, if you let us help you, there is a thing we can do, but of course, you're gonna have to be under our control, which is it's kind of like blackmail, I guess, in a sort of sense, blackmailing until you control the planet. Yeah, but we won't find out exactly what the deal is with that control until next episode. Spoilers, by the way. That's totally what the end of this is. Bill ends up totally giving into this because she finally finds out that the Doctor's been blind the whole time. He couldn't get out of the bio room because he couldn't see the numbers on the door. It seems like it was not really the best payoff that could have come from him being
not only
blind.
That, it's by
for
law
no real reason.
in England that they have to have Braille and things like that.
Yeah, so we'll get into that later, but yeah, more storyline stuff. Eventually, there's just this thing that goes on where every time somebody tries to say yes, you can totally come and take control or do it, they'll shine this white light on them and then do this go thing where they put their hand on their chest and say do this thing. It's real interesting. I honestly can't really describe it as well as it's shown. So if you haven't seen it already, go and see it. It's still a pretty good episode, even though there are some plot contrivances. So they do this thing where they see if the consent is good or not, and then if it's not, then they just dust the person that's there. Eventually, all the other people who are in control try to do this consent, and because it's never actually truthful, they get dusted. And finally, they're like, "Hey, Bill, you can give consent because you're got the ear of the Doctor, so you're actually probably the most control on the planet these days. So you can give consent." And because she's actually truly worried about the Doctor being blind and going to die, her consent is the only true consent. And then we're going to lead on to the next episode, which comes out tomorrow for us.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, with that out of the way, the Late Crow thoughts.
Thoughts? Yes, I have those.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah, I echo what Herrick Skelly said. It was a good episode, despite some really, really big plot contrivances, to put it mildly. Because I'm sure you've all discussed this in relation to the last two episodes, the whole why being blind should not be an issue, which kind of really undermines a lot of what they were trying to do in the episode, unfortunately. But if we can push past that, which I've had to for this episode, yeah, I enjoyed it. I do like the fact that the Nardole hasn't been doing his mothering much at the moment, so that's nice. Although I think I actually messaged the chat, I think, in which you can really tell when Harness is writing and when Moffat is writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, was it Nardole said something about being sexy or something? I'm just like, oh god, Moffat wrote
Moffat,
that.
yeah.
Like, Harness wouldn't write that. It's Moffat. Damn it. So just those kind of irked me because that didn't feel right to me. And again, the whole thing about trying to be clever with the underlying plot line with the lab and kind of being, I think, too obvious about it. I think Moffat was trying to be clever like he tries to in Sherlock, but without having the Sherlock team there to hold the reins on him, he just didn't work.
I think it was more that it didn't fit like any of the other stories, so that's why it didn't feel right. Like you immediately knew what was going on with it because it was so obvious. I mean, if it had been a previous character from a previous story being in there, you'd be like, oh, okay, so he's going to play into this somehow, and then you realize, oh wait, this is actually the underlying storyline going on here. That would have made way more sense. But introducing two completely new characters to this, that was just complete red herring. Just like bells were ringing, cloister bells, everything was going.
Yeah, just a bit. Also, when the hungover guy, I can't remember his name, when the hungover guy incorrectly enters the numbers, I was kind of watching it thinking, surely a very important detailed system like that would ask you to confirm the amount you're putting in before doing it, maybe?
Yeah. Well, what I would really think in a circumstance where you're controlling this sort of stuff, there seems to be an extreme lack of security going on here. Not only is there no like real like checking done by these two people, like there's only two of them, and one of them's basically blind without her glasses. So surely one of them would have been like, hey, should we get somebody else in here to do this? This is kind of important work we're doing, especially considering how much they freaked out when all their crops died. Like that would have just cost their company lots of money. So surely they would have been a bit more careful about this. But also the fact that he was able to open both airlocks at the same time and have them both open. That's not something that exists when there's an airlock system. You make sure that only one of them can be opened at the same time.
There's a sterilizing phase between the two doors. There always is in real life.
So there's no way that could have been the case. It's ridiculous to assume that would be the case. So, yeah, that's what I said, like plot contrivances, because it's not like real big endings to it, and a lot of it is like led up from, well, the biggest thing for me is the lead up from the beginning of the Doctor being blind thing. It's like it would have been okay, honestly, if they'd given a better explanation for him going blind, like actually showing what happens during the vacuum scene. Because then we could have been like, okay, that's why he's gone blind and can't regenerate it, because they've given some explanation during that. That would have been way better. Or at the very least, or in fact, including that, when it comes to the big climax for him being blind and the big problem that's going to cause, it shouldn't have been something that's easily fixed by the fact that it's illegal to not have braille on things.
Yeah.
Or why wasn't it just a keypad instead of like these random sliding numbers? Because then he would know where to press. Yeah. Because you'd just say, is it 1, 2, 3? Is it going 1, 2, 3 to the bottom, or is it going 1, 2, 3 to the top? Because then he'd know where the numbers were. Like, there's no good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both of those, it gets me, makes me shake.
So yeah, I'd say my overall conclusionary thought is good episode, but there are a lot of contrivances to overlook.
Yeah. Thanks for that, the Late Crow. Harriet Skelly.
Well, I guess I kind of intertwined my thoughts there with the Late Crow. But yeah, that basically covers it. Is that there's these real like plot contrivances to it that really, really irk me, in so many ways. And it wouldn't. Luckily, they like spread out over the story, so it's kind of okay. And it's because of slowly getting accustomed to the fact that the Doctor was being blind thing was going to happen, and I guess I've gotten over it now. Like, it's been so long, I've finally gotten over that. But at the time, I was really, really not happy with it. The whole Nardole character thing was interesting as well. He finally actually being the character he was before, but then occasionally he wasn't again. So that was also weird. It's just only some people seem to know how to write him, and the main person doesn't know how to do that, even though he's the one who introduced him. So don't know how that works. But yeah, it's. I think it flows well from the last one into this one. And considering the sort of was it I think it's been pretty good, and I really hope that it follows on at least as good in the next episode, because these few episodes recently have actually been way better than the other ones we had, like the bugs in the wall ones. So there's 2 episodes with bugs in the walls, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. 2 episodes with bugs in the walls. Come on. So we need to keep away from those and stick with something more like this, because this is at least getting closer to what we want.
Exactly. Well, I pretty much follow on from that. These last 2 episodes really haven't been bugging me, which has been good. One thing I was worried about going into this is Peter Harness wrote Kill the Moon. And Kill the Moon is god-awful. Like, horrible. To the point that, like, one should never put that on their resume, as I wrote that episode. But he did redeem himself with the Zygon 2-parter.
Yes.
So him being brought into this, I was like, okay, this could be good. Now, Stephen wrote part 1 of this trilogy, solely. And so I think he's put Peter in the same situation he kind of put Sarah Dollard, with there being an already existing plot that they had to follow.
Yeah.
So they kind of wrote Peter into a corner, which I think is unfair to Peter. And as The Late Crow was saying, you can tell when Stephen wrote dialogue and when Peter wrote dialogue. And I think that comes into what you were saying earlier with Nardole being 2 different people again.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that was a lot less. Also, Nardole's organic lungs being destroyed, I thought was pretty intense. Like he had organic lungs, which I kind of, when I first watched it, I was a bit irked by that, because it was like just a reason for Nardole to not help the Doctor. But looking back on it, Nardole is meant to be part machine, part man. So I've let that go. The whole being blind thing, I know I should be over it by this point, but he can heal that. He can. And I'm just like, if you had just healed that, you wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah.
And there would have been another way for the Doctor to be in trouble here.
Absolutely. Like.
Oh, no, you first, sorry.
Yeah, there absolutely could have been a way better way to say this. Like even like them, like a way better like science fiction-y way would have been simply to say, oh, the keypad actually had some biochemical elements to it, and the fact that this virus was exposed to it meant that it broke, and he was completely unable to get through it. That would have been way better. You know. I'm
glad you brought up bio there, because the Doctor's organic. So why didn't he get killed?
Oh, because he's a Time Lord. No. They have particularly keen abilities to save themselves from things like this.
Yeah,
like
being blind. It's so like that really frustrated me, because you watch this guy dissolve, and I'm like, Doctor, your race are not gods, because there are literal gods in the universe. You are not them. You're mortal, even though you can change your face. That's because you're mortal. That's why you have to do it. It's to stop you from dying. So, this bacterium should have killed him.
It should have.
And it was really frustrating that he wasn't wearing a suit. And the thing is that, like, there were suits hanging up in the background. It wouldn't have been that hard to just have him put that on.
I know it's.
It was
Say, talking about suits, actually, there was one thing else I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
That finally, with the hangover, the hungover character,
Yeah.
there finally was another one of those like those old Who, there's classic Whovian terrible people around, like
Yeah.
just people who are just absolutely really not people that should exist in the world.
Yeah.
Someone who got so wasted and still came into work feeling that bad and ruined the world simply because he took his helmet off and was being like that. It angered me, and that was great that someone on the screen being bad made me really angry. That's something I actually really liked about this episode.
Yeah, it reminded me of the guy in the Silurians. Remember the guy who ran the drilling project? And
exactly.
I was like, yeah, you're that guy. And that whole scenario was very Third Doctor to me, where like a threat on Earth created by humans was the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And the monks coming and asking to save us was like the Axons.
Yeah.
Because the Axons required permission as well.
I guess.
So
in a way.
Yeah, so and the Axon also had world leaders there.
Yeah.
So I was like, when I was watching this, I was like, this is just John Pertwee. Like somebody went back finally and watched some good Doctor Who and was just like, what if we compressed the whole Pertwee run into one story? And
maybe if they just remembered to watch the episode where Pertwee did the coma regeneration thing, then maybe,
yeah. Also, remember that time Pertwee wore bio hazmat suits? Remember that time the 10th Doctor wore a bio hazmat suit? That's New Who, guys. New Who remembered that. So that was really, really bizarre that he didn't wear a bio hazmat suit and was A-okay. That really, really frustrated me watching this. And like, even when I went back and watched it a second time, I was like, that's annoying. And just saying he's a Time Lord doesn't work because the 10th Doctor, 2 incarnations ago, wore a bio hazmat suit.
Yep.
Also, with my wife being a Chinese national, when we were watching the story, it was I always find it uncomfortable when white people write the Chinese because they never get China right. And my wife was like, the Chinese army is not active in the way the story is saying they're active.
No.
So that was...
It was very inaccurate.
Yeah, I was like, oh...
Even I knew that. I was like, this does not seem right at all. It doesn't make any sense why the Chinese army is there at all.
Yeah.
Like, this is in the middle of Europe is the idea of this, right? This way they've got a pyramid and not like something else instead. So it's clearly designed to be like Middle Eastern-esque place. So the only real armies that should be involved, I understand America and maybe even Russia kind of makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
But realistically, it should be probably like the Israeli army or the Pakistani army. Like that would make way more sense than China. Why is China there?
Yeah, I know. That was so weird. And like, and it was funny because like I could see her getting progressively more awkward, especially how the Chinese character has a name that isn't a Chinese name at all ever.
Good lord.
So I was like, oh, that's awkward. So yeah, that was another irksome part of the story. It really should have been, as you said, it should have been an army from the actual area they were in. So America, the Russians sort of make sense because Putin got involved IRL with the skirmishes.
I mean, the whole thing. The thing is that it doesn't. The idea was that they sat down somewhere so that so that they could get some people who are in charge to give consent, right?
Yeah.
So if that was the case, why wouldn't you sit down maybe right next to the UN building? Maybe.
Yeah.
That would probably terrify a lot more people if a pyramid just appeared out of the tarmac right next to the UN building instead of just being in the desert, because it would have been a lot harder to try and like blow it up with a bomber if it was in the middle of a city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another weird thing is the General Secretary of the UN is way more protected than that.
Yep.
There is no way that they would have been allowed in that pyramid. So that was a bit weird. And I mean, this is stuff that like Google could fix for you. Just Google, hey, what are the jurisdictions around A? Oh, well, around A, they have to have A, B, C, D. Oh, okay. I won't put them in my story.
Yeah. Same with like what is the Chinese army doing right now?
Yeah.
You know?
So,
simple things like that.
yeah.
Or what's a good name for some mummy-looking guys that come out of a pyramid? The mummies, not the monks.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's funny, they even kind of liken themselves, they imply they look like mummies themselves. They say that they are like corpses because that's how they view humans, and
Exactly.
mummies are human corpses. So.
Yeah. Also, they're in a freaking pyramid. Like,
Yeah,
right.
they're in a pyramid.
They're in
an Egyptian pyramid.
Yeah.
They're not in like a Mayan pyramid.
Yeah, they're not in a
They're
mastaba. They're in a proper pyramid.
So, come on, like, the mummies. I mean, I know like Brendan Fraser would not be happy about that, but still, come on, the mummies.
Yeah, we might even revive his career with this. But also another thing is that China is not an active member of the UN. In fact, they disagree with the UN quite a bit. So so this whole them actively acting with the UN is completely out of character. Now I know the Whoniverse is in an alternate reality to our own, but come on. Just Google.
Yeah, but even in the Whoniverse, I don't think that there is a country anywhere in the world that borders between America, Russia, and China. Yeah. That seems like a really not real thing.
Yeah, because America is its own separate continent.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so that's the thing. So there was a lot of like real life elements that frustrated me about this story that made me like disengage with it, because you had to suspend so much of your disbelief that. Even though the acting was on point, and it really, really was, I didn't enjoy this story. I didn't think it was bad. I couldn't engage with it myself personally.
Exactly. It took you out of the story far too much. And that's what the worst things about those plot contrivances as well, is that they also helped take you right out of the story. And it was unenjoyable in that way. Like, looking at it as from a story perspective, you're like, okay, yes, this is all right. But just, you couldn't engage with it in the same way. And I doubt even little children would have been able to engage with this properly if they had any knowledge of the world. Like, they would have been like, what? Why? Especially considering, I bet as soon as like they were coming out, the kids would have called them the mummies. Yeah. Like, kids would have called them that. They wouldn't have called them the monks.
Yeah, kids know what mummies are pretty early on, because they're like frequent in pop culture. They're one of the first things you learn about as well as a kid in terms of world history, ancient Egypt.
Because it's one of the big deals in ancient history. So
it's so, I don't know, it's so weird, because there's so much of your disbelief that has to be suspended that you pretty much just have to turn that part of your brain off, which is not the easiest thing to do unless you're watching like a cult B movie where it has to be turned off. It's kind of hard to do with Doctor Who when there's meant to be a little bit of science fact in there. That was I don't know, it was weird. If you don't have an understanding of a people's or a nation, don't use them in your story.
No,
just don't do that. Also, basic safety things as well. Like we brought up before, basic safety things. Airlocks are staged. They're staged for the reason to stop contamination.
Because that's what an airlock does. It separates these two regions. What's supposed to happen in an airlock? You walk through one door, then it's going to depressurize or decontaminate you, so that you're no longer covered in the atmosphere of the previous room you are in, but are covered with the atmosphere of the room you're going into. That is the idea there. And in a space scenario, it's supposed to fill and remove air. That's why it's called an airlock. So having it be able to open on both sides makes it completely unnecessary to have one.
Hey,
you might as well just have a normal corridor,
You know what doctor was stuck in that recently? Oh, the 10th. The 10th Doctor was. Guess what it was? It was staged.
You know what? The 12th Doctor was literally just at... This is where he went blind in space, where there were airlocks.
There was an airlock in that as well, just before he went blind. How do you forget that? Didn't he write that story too? I'm so confused. I'm so unbelievably confused. This is frustrating, this story, because I loved part 1 of this trilogy. I thoroughly enjoyed part 1 of this trilogy.
Absolutely.
And I really hope part 3 picks up the ball. I'm like, please pick up the ball, because it was dropped so superbly here. It just echoes for me what my wife said at the end of that. She just looked at me and she goes, "What in the world happened in the story?" And I just didn't know what to say. With that, I'll just grab everybody's final thoughts and we'll move into Kinder. The Late Crow.
Yeah, it was a story. Story-wise, it was, if it's standalone story, it's all right. But as everyone has said, just far too many contrivances to enjoy thoroughly. It's kind of bit of a letdown.
Harriet Skelly.
Yeah, definitely a B movie sort of stance.
Yeah.
You have to go into it just not expecting anything. You'd have to go into it like having a lobotomy to properly like get into it. You'd have to remove yourself from so many realistic terms, because it barely feels sci-fi. It feels like bad horror. Really, it does.
I just echo what everybody says. It is a difficult story to properly engage with, but everything was there for the foundation of a really good story, and it just sort of had weak things keeping it together, and it fell apart. So I'm hoping part 3 picks this up. But let's go to Kinder, one of my favorite Fifth Doctor adventures, and The Late Crow. Take us away.
Okay, it's time for a Kinder surprise.
I knew someone was going to do that this week.
Couldn't resist. Okay, so we're on the planet of Devaloka, I believe it's called.
It is indeed.
It's kind of a jungle planet, and there's a small group of humans. They've got a bit of a base going, looking to colonize the planet. We have the members of the crew. This kind of very very stern commander, Sanders, and his kind of assistant Hindle and scientist Todd. They're just going about trying to do their job in this base, and they've got a couple of the Kinder, which are a group they're the locals. They've got a couple of them on the base, and Todd's kind of trying to look into them, see what's what. Meanwhile, the TARDIS crew arrive, and Nissa is she needs to recover from the events of the last episode, which I confess I have not watched. I just presumed it was from the last episode.
It was indeed.
So she stays in the TARDIS to relax. Then the Doctor, Edric, and Tegan go wandering. Tegan finds these chimes and goes to sleep under them. And the Doctor and Edric just continue on without her. Just no, we'll come back for you. You sleep here. What could go wrong?
This wilderness we know nothing about. What could go wrong?
Yeah. So they go off, and Edric and the Doctor find the TSS, the Total Survival Unit, which is this bulky robot machine thing that the colonists at the base used to move around in the jungle.
They remind me of the war machines from Hartnell's era.
Yeah, totally. They do, actually. So the machine basically takes them to the dome where they meet up with the colonists, who Sanders immediately decides that they're untrustworthy, or not untrustworthy, just suspicious. Hindle's kind of unclear, and Todd's just kind of observing. Meanwhile, if we go back to Tegan, she's going into a deep sleep and basically seems to be in some form of kind of a deep dream sort of trance, and she meets this creepy, it's the Mara, we later find out, kind of vying for control of her, but she needs to give him, talking about consent, needs to give the Mara consent to take her form and control her. So there's a bit of a battle in her mind going on there. The Doctor and Edric need to gain the trust of the colonists, which they get on well with Todd. Hindle is very well. In part 1, he starts going quite slowly, bit unsure what's going on. Then Sanders goes away on an expedition. Hindle goes very unhinged and starts going crazy because he's been given command and goes very what do I call it? Just very crazy. I don't really know what else to call it. So things can, yeah. I enjoyed watching the actor playing Hindle being crazy though. It was
he was
really good acting in this episode. Yeah, some very good acting. So meanwhile, Mara gets control of Tegan. So Mara is now got a mortal form, which he then uses Tegan to get control of one of the Kinder. Eris, I believe that one's called. Sanders returns from his expedition to the group carrying a box that was given to him by an old lady, the wise lady of the Kinder, and her assistant. This box is basically the Kinder's sort of reset your mind, find peace box, but if you're a male, it will drive you crazy apparently, which we find out is what happened to Sanders. Because he starts acting ridiculously childish in comparison to his earlier overbearing nature. At the base, Hindle gets more and more crazy, starts setting explosives to blow up things in case they need to defend themselves. The Mara is busy trying to get control of the whole Kinder people. He does eventually, because the Kinder all connected telepathically, and turns out there's a prophecy that when the Kinder male who speaks, because as male Kinders aren't supposed to speak, when one does, that's just like, you got to obey this fella. So the kind of awfully convenient for the Mara there. But they gain control of the Kinder to try and attack the base that all the people are at, including the the Doctor's not there. The Doctor joins forces with the wise lady who dies, but then doesn't die because her knowledge and experience pass on to a younger assistant.
Yeah, she just uploads herself. She's like, I'm just going to join the Kinder cloud. You know how it is.
Yeah.
We'll move with the times, really.
I feel like it was more like a I've been training this person and then I'm going to put my brain on them. Ha!
Yeah.
I will live forever in you.
Oh dear. The Doctor makes their way back to the base to try and, because they work out that's where the Mara wants to go to destroy, goes over there, and they finally bring up how, because Hindle has got some of the Kinder that were on the base under his control. They work out that using mirrors, because the Kinder believe that their reflections are their souls, so they're trapped, which the Doctor deduces can be used to defeat the Mara by trapping it in its own reflection. And was it? I enjoyed it, but I didn't quite follow the logic of that. I perhaps need to rewatch it. But basically, the Mara gets trapped in a circle of mirrors, except for that massive gap where, which is kind of obvious, which we'll just...
That's where the camera needed to be. Shh.
Well, what I love is when it shows the aerial shot, there's no gap at all.
Yeah.
That's like... Almost like the director noticed that shot and just like, oh, can we just kind of film a higher angle there, just kind of cover that up? Sweet.
Yeah, there you go.
So the Mara is defeated, and the people seemingly go back to normal. Hindle's back to normal. Sanders is... he's not overbearing anymore, but he seems to be himself again.
Yeah.
Kind of like a very all is well that ends well sort of ending, which was kind of a feel-good ending for me. Meanwhile, Nyssa just kind of wakes up and is like, oh, what did I miss?
Yeah, and this is all like, I'm sorry that Sarah Sutton had to go on holiday. Who's Sarah Sutton? No one.
Was that the reason?
Yeah, Sarah Sutton went on holiday. It's like how William Hartnell's Doctor turned invisible during the Celestial Toymaker.
Yeah. That's exactly it, actually.
That's great. I
just love how it was
enjoyed-
asleep. She went to sleep. Like,
Yeah.
but the thing is that she was in the TARDIS and using these Delta things. She wasn't sleeping in the Mara thing, so
No.
it's okay.
Exactly.
I really enjoyed this episode. It was very fun. I loved it. I did laugh out loud at the moment when the Fifth Doctor is having an apple and he's like, an apple a day keeps the. No, never mind. I know. I just loved that. It was great. It was a real feel-good episode for me.
Right. Okay.
It took me a while to get into it because I felt part one was a bit slow, but once part two got me going, I was hooked.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Okay. Harriet Skelly, your thoughts?
Yeah, the story was alright. I liked it. It seemed like a lot of the characters just sort of got cut out there for a long period of time, where Tegan and Nyssa just sort of disappeared for most of the story. Obviously, Nyssa went because her actress went away. I'm kind of wondering if that was maybe the same thing that happened with Tegan as well.
No. No.
No?
No.
I don't know why she was just not in the story for ages then. She's just sort of like, she went to sleep, did this dream sequence, and then she just wasn't in it until like the end. It was weird. I don't understand that, but that's fine. It was good otherwise. I'm really not sure about like the Eden analogy that it's going for, where it's paradise, there's a snake involved, men can't speak.
No, it's not a reference to Eden.
It kind of seems like it is.
Yeah, no, it's not though. The religion used for this is Buddhism.
Okay, I see.
The religion
I see.
used for the
It's just
story is Buddhism, so it's Nirvana.
Right. Okay, that makes more sense. But it's still very interesting with the snake thing. So
Yeah, a snake is one of the demons from Buddhism.
oh right, of course. Okay, I guess you could you could see it either way, but it was interesting either way. Yeah, the interesting the whole humans invading thing is always played out very well in classic Who, and they haven't really done anything like it recently in New Who, so there's no real basis there. I'd really like to see more of this sort of stuff, where the Doctor ends up on a planet where humans are trying to invade and is basically like the person who stops them from invading on primitives again.
Because the only thing we got close to that in New Who was the game with the 10th Doctor, Planet of the Ood.
Yeah. But even then, that was not quite there, you know? I mean, I guess it kind of was, because they'd already invaded the Ood and they were being that kind of person to them. But I think it's a little... I'm thinking like pre-invade, like as they're colonizing sort of deal, because we saw that a lot in classic Who, is that whole idea, especially considering the British were still struggling with the whole they were the colonizers there for a while. So
yes, they were.
It's sort of like an apologetic sort of, we understand what we did there, guys. We're going to be sorry about it. So yeah, I like that idea though, you know, because that's absolutely something that's going to come up when we finally get into space and start exploring the galaxy. Is what happens when we come across, primitive life forms or people who haven't necessarily developed as we have. How are we going to treat them? You know, we don't want to just come in and take over the world, especially considering it's not very feasible to do that. It would be way easier to just like mine asteroids or something. But at least we should know how we're going to interact with these people, and it's good to explore that in science fiction, especially having the Doctor around to fix everything, you know?
Yeah, there's a chance to stop being dumb.
Yes.
Right. Kinder is one of my favorites because it's actually part of an overarching story, and that doesn't happen a lot in classic Who, an overarching story. I like that Tegan is taken to the Inside Out, and I love that reality, where it's a reality of the sort of the dark psyches of all living beings. The Dokar, who is the gentleman that she speaks to, that asks for her to accept him to take her over, is probably one of my favorite villains, because he reminds me a lot of the sort of deity level villains that I like from Classic Who, like the Black Guardian, the Celestial Toymaker, the Gods of Ragnarok. And he does look like somebody right out of the set of the greatest show in the galaxy, which features the the Gods of Ragnarok. So I love that aesthetic. I love that the Inside Out place is devoid of color. Evil Tegan's always great though, and I'm quite, as long listers would know, I love Tegan. She's my favorite female companion from Classic Era Who. And just the constant intersplicing of the elements of Buddhism in there. I quite like the design of the Kinder. They reminded me a lot of Polynesian nations. The dress, especially the headwear, was quite nice, especially what the Trickster wore. The fact that the planet is even called Devaloka, which is a main setting in Buddhist philosophy. So it was like, it was really cool to have all of this in here. The idea of Hindel's want for power slowly destroying him is another ideal of Buddhism. Is that the thirst for power is what drives Hindel over the edge. And he's been steadily going crazy over time anyway. And if that final break is one of my favorite parts of the story, especially when he creates that that model town. It's just like a pile of junk, and he thinks it's like the best thing he's ever made.
Like he's become like an infant again. That's great.
He's witnessed the second childhood. Another thing that like I found sort of unnerving is the Doctor quite clearly tries to kill him in part 4.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
He quite clearly tries to murder him. And then when Todd is like, "Promise you won't open the box," and she like lures him into defeating himself, I thought that was such a brilliant use of something that had established in the story, and it didn't feel like Deus Ex Machina because you knew the power of the box, and she walked him into the situation. And I think that's really good storytelling. I think there's somebody whose initials are SM that could really learn from that. So
maybe
there's Edric does something that I thought was quite a good use of another established trait of his character. They make it appear like he's double crossing the Doctor, which he has done in the past. But he actually used that element of his personality, something that by the looks of things he's come to know that isn't a good part of his personality. He uses that to trick the what was his name again? Was it Hitler? Hindel. Hindel. He uses that to pretty much trick Hindel into gaining his trust and then freeing the Doctor. And I think that was really great of him to be coming along and doing this, which is interesting because this is an Eric Saward era script, so it's it's not Time Flight, which is great. And I just think there's such a good use of the characters that are established here. I like the world, like the ideals, and the fact that like we've got another deity level villain. And he plays in the shadows, I think, better than the Black Guardian ever will. Probably why the Black Guardian can't win. It's like, man, I really wish I lived in the Inside Out. So it was good. This is again one of my favorite stories from the Classic Era, just because of the nature of the Dakar and his inevitable form of the Mara. Unfortunately, you guys would have seen the original transmitted version, which isn't bad, but they have actually George Lucas Part 4, where the snake was replaced with CG.
I don't know. I like the snake.
I like the snake too.
It was a good fact.
But the CG snake that they've replaced it with, wow. I was just like, if you guys could go back and fix the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the dinosaur invasion, we'll call it even. And so yeah, those are my thoughts on the Kinder. So the Late Crow. Anything you want to add?
Nothing more than just echoing what's already been said. I did echoing what you said. Definitely love the look of the you call it the Inside Out?
Yeah, the Inside Out.
It was very cool and very unnerving. Just
especially that old couple sitting down to tea. They creep me out every time I watch the story.
And the performance of the Dakar was so good. And I loved watching, just acting all around was great. I loved watching the performances of Hindel and Sanders, especially.
Yeah. Especially that 180 in Sanders' performance when he becomes the almost idiot level intellect, and he's like, "Hello there." He was such a gruff. He was such a gruff egotist beforehand.
I know, it was so good.
Right. Okay. Well, with everything said and done, that will wrap up part A this week. The Late Crow, thank you so much for joining us again,
My pleasure.
and we'll catch you in part B.